What do we have here? I thought the Nintendo Switch was going out of business. I thought it couldn't compete with the PS5. I thought that third parties were rallying behind PlayStation and Xbox in a desperate bid to try and make the Nintendo Switch obsolete. I thought that the Steam Deck, the RIG Ally, and all those other cheap Chinese tablets were going to destroy Nintendo Switch. Why exactly is the previously unheard of 30 out of 30 Famitus best-selling titles Nintendo Switch games? Why are games that I was told failed, like The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom and Mario and Luigi Brothership, on this list? Like, why exactly is Dragon Quest III most popular on Nintendo Switch? Why exactly is no one talking about what a huge, monumental success Super Mario Party Jamboree is? This may be a Japanese exclusive list, but I imagine if we were to see other sales numbers from all over the world, it would look very similar to this. Now, there may be some exceptions, such as Call of Duty, such as Grand Theft Auto, such as FIFA, a few minor, smaller titles from lesser developers might weasel their way on there, but there is no denying when it comes to the actual real video games, the stuff that people actually want to play and will actually remember a year from now, Nintendo is dominating the console space. This list is really interesting to me because the narrative all year long has been that this isn't a good year for games. There's nothing coming out. Nintendo's on the way out. PlayStation and Xbox are going to put out the big boy games next year, and Switch is going to be put out the past year, while the Nintendo Switch 2 fails to live up to the original. We've been told this for years now, but looking at these numbers, looking at this list, all of which, every game sold on this list is giving money to Nintendo. Okay, that's the long and short of it. When you actually look at these lists, when you see how well Switch is still doing, when you notice things like Okame shooting up to the top of the Nintendo Switch eShop charts, while it doesn't do so on Steam or other platforms, when you look at things like this, the reality becomes very self-evident. If you are a serious hardcore gamer, you are exclusively playing on Nintendo hardware. They tried to give Astrobot a Game of the Year award at an officially sanctioned event. What happened? I don't see Astrobot on this list. I don't see anybody talking about Astrobot at all. To me, this is very evident as to where we are currently in the console war, where Nintendo is so utterly dominant, but the community as a whole is very unwilling to admit it. They don't want to admit that Nintendo never went woke. They don't want to admit that Nintendo has the best hardware. They don't want to admit that they have the best games. And they certainly don't want to admit that the Nintendo Switch is still on top of the industry 7 years later. 8 years later, actually. 8 years of Nintendo Switch dominating the console industry. Do you really think that the next console is going to come out and people are just going to be like, oh, I don't want that. I don't like Nintendo anymore. I'm too old for that. No, those days are behind us. It simply isn't going to happen. The copes that people had back in the day, that Nintendo censored their games, that Nintendo is for kids, that Nintendo only has Mario, Zelda, Pokemon, all of those narratives, which were never true, all of those narratives have been slowly dismantled over the past decade to the point where anybody who tries and utilize them now ends up looking like a seething retard. Because look at this list. Look at what's on Nintendo Switch. You have games like Super Mario Party Jamboree, one of the best family-oriented games in existence. Mario Party is a huge title for Nintendo Switch, a huge title for Nintendo, and has reached new heights with this release. ND Cube, after an entire decade, more than a decade, of working on the franchise, has finally put out an absolute banger. The best Mario Party ever made. Top of that field. Best party franchise there is. Dragon Quest III HD 2-Make. A remake of a classic RPG that far surpasses shit like Wizardry, like Ultima, like The Elder Scrolls, like Baldur's Gate. Dragon's Quest is better than all of that shit. And it does need to be acknowledged more, because I keep seeing people desperately try and act as if Dragon Quest is only popular due to nostalgia, that it's not a big deal, that nobody really likes it. In reality, it's by far the best RPG series ever produced, by quite a significant margin. If you haven't played them all or experienced the spin-offs, you wouldn't know this, but it is far better than all of its competitors. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, the greatest racing game of all time, that has recently gotten DLC updates. Fantastic release. Minecraft, a Microsoft-owned game is a bestseller on Nintendo Switch. I don't see the Xbox version here. But yeah, Mario and Luigi Brothership, a great game. My personal pick for Game of the Year 2024. Amazing, phenomenal release. It's doing really well, by the way, in spite of what certain people may tell you. You have Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, the all-time great fighting game, the greatest crossover ever made. The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. Top-down Zelda, unique, interesting mechanics, a great twist on a classic franchise. Animal Crossing New Horizons, the all-time great life sim, the Game of the Year for 2020, a big deal for millions of people, the second highest-selling game on Nintendo Switch. Phenomenal. The legendary Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. What can I say that hasn't already been said? The games that surpassed the popularity of Pokemon Red and Green in Japan. A game that has proven Pokemon's ability to evolve and grow beyond its initial concept. One of my favorite generations ever. Phenomenal experience. Nintendo Switch Sports. A game that far surpasses the shit licensed garbage that EA regurgitates every year. It's better than Madden, it's better than FIFA, it's better than MLB The Show. Nintendo Switch Sports is a phenomenal game that really deserves to see a lot of love. And when you look at these lists, when you see games like Pikmin 4, when you see Splatoon 3, when you see Super Mario Bros. Wonder, Ring Fit Adventure, Kirby and the Forgotten Land, you realize that all of these games, all of them, are in radically different genres. They appeal to radically different people, and there are endless options to choose from. Endless. Gone are the days where you would spend 5 years waiting for Rockstar to put out some new GTA derivative thing. Nintendo is putting out great new games every week. It's impossible to keep up with this stuff, especially if you're into JRPGs. So when you look at this list, when you see all these crazy games, all of which are better than, I'd say everything in the top 10 is better than Black Myth Wukong, Astrobot, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, all the Game of the Year nominees at the Game Awards this year. All of this is better than that, for sure. When you really look at this list and just realize that every single game on here is better than all of the games that have been put forward on the PlayStation 4 and Xbox, PlayStation 5 and Xbox One. When you see just how none of this will ever be available on PC, you just come away with this feeling that, how exactly can the lesser video game developers ever compete? It's been 20 years since Half-Life 2, right? Where's Half-Life 3? Meanwhile, we're getting new Pokemon games every 3 years, right? What exactly are the competition doing? What are they possibly going to do to compete with this stellar lineup? I think the industry is under this current delusion that Nintendo is going to fall off over the next couple of years, that the Nintendo Switch 2 is going to bomb, and that the company's going to go woke and everything is going to go downhill immediately. It isn't going to happen. It really needs to be understood that Nintendo's current momentum is not going to be stopped by anything. The only thing that will stop Nintendo at this point is when they stop producing such high quality product. And by my estimation, that is not going to happen anytime soon.